Hi everyone, here's what's bothering me today. We need to talk about Colombia, but in order to do that, we kind of have to go back to 2019. So back in 2019, and I'm pretty sure I made a video referencing some of these, the whole breadth of Latin America was undergoing some form of protest or attempt at reform, but the biggest protests that ended up making international news were those from Guatemala, Peru, Ecuador, Chile, rather famously, Bolivia as well, Argentina, Venezuela, and Colombia. These protests were about a great many things. So we wanted to see some kind of reform. Guatemalans burned down their Congress because their government made cuts to education. The whole Chilean revolution happened over a subway fare increase. Venezuela, the protests were against, again, poor economic performance, as well as, the whole American involvement thing and Juan Guaido. That's a topic for another time. Ecuador, they were again protesting against government cuts to spending and lack of taking care of their own people and citizenry. A lot of these have very similar patterns in terms of why people were protesting, and Colombia is no different. The current protests happened over a proposed tax increase because Colombia has like a nearly $5 billion gap that it needs to close. And so it wanted to raise taxes on your average Colombians as well as on businesses. Now, also for those unaware, Colombia has definitely been struggling for a long time. It's basically been in a civil war since even before the infamous narco days. You have the FARC rebels in the mountains and committing attacks and kidnappings. Then you had the narco trafficking that Pablo Escobar and the Cali cartel made famous. And then you have the current system where it's basically a American propped up right-wing state that is taking funds from the Americans and from the International Monetary Fund, I think. And they are using these to try and build Colombia back, but they have to pay back these high interest loans. And because it's a capitalist system, if they can't actually make their payments, then their currency gets devalued, and then no one wants to invest in them, and then that's bad for business, and oh no, the Colombian economy is tanking. This is where the idea for proposing these new taxes, as well as an expansion of the social safety net, came from. And this is interesting because the current president of Colombia, Ivan Duque, he's a conservative, and yet he has been the one overseeing the attempted expansion of social services. However, as a conservative in Colombia, they are infamous for police crackdowns and brutality, as we've seen in the harrowing videos coming out of Colombia, where police and authorities are just indiscriminately firing live rounds into crowds, and that's resulting in dozens of dead protesters in the streets. It is a terrifying situation, and not enough people are talking about it. They have to pay back these predatory loans, and if they fail to pay them back, well, tough cookies, Colombia. That means we're going to devalue your currency, and it's going to be even more terrible, which means you'll need to take out more loans, and you're even more in debt to us, so you better do what we say. And that's just really par for the course for so much of Latin America these days. Latin America, and this includes Colombia, is currently undergoing probably a very long and difficult process. As I said before, a lot of this started in 2019, where there were real pushes across many countries to try and improve the situations within them and to create attempts at democratic reform, spending reform. People are recognizing in Latin America that their situation is not good and it could be better, but their leaders tend to be trapped by certain treaties or agreements or these predatory loans. Now, in terms of potential good news, the president has rescinded his proposed tax reforms that would have increased taxes on the poor and on small businesses and things like that. So depending how you look at it, this is a good thing. But this still doesn't change the fact that Colombia still has to pay back these loans, which is why almost immediately Colombia's currency was devalued. Also, what's important to bear in mind is that these tax reforms, even though they took them off the table and they withdrew these attempted tax reforms, the anger persists, especially because now there's dead Colombians in the street. So while this is arguably a short-term immediate win for the protesters, this story is still very much ongoing. And we're not hearing enough news about if the authorities are going to face some kind of consequences, which unfortunately it's Latin America, so highly unlikely. But all this once again highlights the current tension in Latin America, which is those of right-wing governments and, well, just many Latin American governments in general, claiming that they need financial stability in order to pay back these predatory loans that they got from various Western powers or the IMF. They're saying that these are necessary to pay back, but it's forcing people, their own citizens, into poverty and insecurity, which inherently destabilizes countries anyway. This is just another form of imperialism over the global South. That's what it is. And speaking as a Latino, someone with heritage from this corner of South America, the fact that we don't recognize this as another form of imperialism is definitely what's bothering me today.